Hello, it's so good to have you with us here at Leadership for Sustainability. This is the podcast where we share our experience to help you draw on the best in human nature and work with the rest of nature so your sustainability initiatives deliver results and make a real difference in the world. I'm Osbert Lancaster, longtime sustainability coach, consultant and trainer, and co-founder of Realise Earth. If you're leading on sustainability in your organisation, you need people working closely with you, even if they're not officially part of your team. Today we're looking at what makes for a good sustainability team and how you can go about building yours. Richard Proffitt, my good friend and Realise Earth co-founder, will be sharing his experience of developing an effective sustainability team at PepsiCo. To give us a bit of context, I asked Rich to start by describing his sustainability leadership journey at PepsiCo.
So it really started when I was working as a project manager within PepsiCo, and they asked me to look at ISO 14001 and implement the environmental management system for the UK logistics operation. So I got into the detail of doing that and delivering that. But what resonated with me was sort of getting a better understanding of the impacts of the operation and the technical solutions for finding the fixes and the solutions to those impacts. And it just sort of led me down a path of increased awareness and wanting to create positive change to deal with those impacts. Obviously, whilst that started with logistics, as I sort of dug more into this, the rest of the organization opened up, and the range of different impacts that we had in different functions all sort of started coalescing and coming together, and increased my concern to try to create positive change. So from that, I then decided I wanted to go off and get a master's degree in something environmental. So with a view to maybe changing careers or just refining what I was doing. And I was talking to a colleague, and he had done a program in responsible business practice, which was then held at Bath University. But it had since migrated to Ashridge Business School, and it had changed its name to Masters in Sustainability and Responsibility. So I ended up going and doing that program, still with the intent of potentially leaving the organization. But when I was sort of halfway through that, again, conversations with the same colleague, well, why move on? Why not stay and use that knowledge and experience from the masters to try to affect change within the organization? And effectively act as an internal change agent. And so that's what I did. Me, this other colleague, and 3 or 4 other colleagues were together. We came together and formed the same team, which was looking at environmental sustainability across the European operation for PepsiCo. And we were kind of looked at the way we were operating, trying to affect change, both within our own team, but also within the rest of the businesses. We're trying to influence them. And that was the work, really. It expanded through what European level, but then we all started, for a number of us, started working at a global level. The term team became quite dilute in that we were all working in different teams and functions across the business, but we were still stayed together as a community of interest and a community of action within the organization, as a self-supporting network of people trying to affect change within their own system, within the broader PepsiCo system. And that all becomes important about, what are you defining team? What are you defining as leader? Because a team can come from anywhere and a leader can come from anywhere, and that becomes important. And we'll probably touch on that a little bit more later on. But essentially, we went as a collective team. Our scope and remit and responsibility grew, and for me personally, it meant by the end of my time at PepsiCo, I was in a global role, responsible for global operations, energy, climate strategy across 350 manufacturing sites around the world, plus some of the co-manufacturing sites that manufactured for PepsiCo but weren't owned by PepsiCo. And it was a fantastic experience working in one of the bigger multinationals in the world, trying to affect positive change and impact, and influencing its strategy and its goals.
Great. Thank you so much, Rich. What I want to do now then, I think, is, sort of to try and extract from all that experience and your experience elsewhere as well, some advice we can give to the listener so that they can apply that to develop their own sustainability team, however they're defining sustainability team. And so what I think we should do is we'll take this in 3 stages. We'll start off with what you were trying to achieve, what kind of team did you want to develop, and then we'll move on to talking about the skills that are required for sustainability leadership. Then finally moving on to, well, how do you actually go about developing those skills? I'm pretty certain we'll sort of jump around a little bit and they'll overlap, but let's take that as the rough framework. Let's kick off then with sort of, the first question here. What was your main objective and what kind of team is needed to deliver on sustainability?
So I think in terms of what we were doing at PepsiCo, I'm not sure there was a cohesive plan in terms of what type of team we wanted to be. And I think it was more about a coalescing and a coming together of people who thought in a similar way or had a similar purpose and drive to create positive change. And I think that sort of leads on to, what's needed for a team. I actually think it comes from people who have passion and commitment for the agenda. So to my mind, it doesn't matter where they're positioned in an organization, what level of seniority they're in doesn't actually matter. But what you're looking for is that people who are high energy, high passion, commitment, and enthusiasm for the topic. If you bring them together, you can then refine what it is they work on based on their sort of skill sets and experiences. But you can't necessarily inspire passion in people, but you absolutely can. But it's useful to start with a team who already have that passion and commitment, because we're then working with a highly motivated team to create the change that is going to be needed. So that would be my starting point. I think within that team, it's also important that they within the team, and what you're trying to espouse and bring to the broader organization, is this culture of collaboration. Collaboration is essential. You're not going to make much ground without it. And there's a number of internal organizational hurdles you're going to have to sort of think about to overcome when it comes to collaboration. But within the team, there needs to be this spirit of collaboration. And that really only comes if the team trust themselves, trust each other, trust the rest of the group. A lot of work will need to be done to build and establish trust. And that comes with honesty and transparency and getting over a lot of the individualistic attitudes that can arise in organizations, personal objective setting and personal goals, because often they're focused on what that individual delivers rather than what they can co-create and deliver as a team. So you kind of have to overcome those things. But again, the passion and the commitment, if it's there, kind of trumps those other aspects, because that's often the real purpose why someone's there, not the objectives of their role, which are arbitrary, kind of, hate to say it, sort of HRE box ticking, rather than actual real purpose why someone might be coming to work. So if you can get all those things in places, then you start creating a team that has the potential to be quite effective. And the final piece I think I'd say on this is from a skill set, if you like, and then we'll come more onto skills. But within that team, you need to start strengthening your capacity for empathy as a team. So if there's individuals within the team, you can develop strong empathy. So what that does is it really starts making the relationships within the team and beyond the team more effective. And those relationships allow you to start creating the influence that you need to bring about the changes and the interventions for positive action that you want within the organization.
And you mentioned there are some hurdles that the team and the people are going to have to overcome. You touched on that a little bit. Is there any other challenges around a collaborative culture that may be very different from the rest of the organization? Do you want to say a little bit more about that and how people might recognize that and address that?
Yeah, I think the bigger the organization, often the more challenges there are. You're going to get interdepartmental rivalry or silo thinking where you're in the sustainability team, that's your job, I do engineering or I do sales or I do marketing or whatever. And a lot of organizations are still blighted by this idea that individual functions are responsible for certain areas, and you've got to overcome that, because all of the functions are interrelated and interdependent, particularly when it comes to sustainability. So you've got to break down this organizational silo piece. I've touched on the individual objectives and performance, appraisals, and you often see it towards the end of the year. People just get so focused on making sure they've completed their objectives. They've got no capacity or scope or willingness to engage in anything that's not on their list of things to tick off. And so again, that becomes quite a challenge. And an approach to deal with that from a conventional perspective is to make sure that the right people have a sustainability goal within their objectives, because then they've got something there that they have to tick off that would support your agenda and to work in the area that you need them to work on. The challenge with that, though, is that's still a conventional approach. It's still a box ticking exercise. It doesn't unlock within them any passion or commitment to actually deliver a sustainable change. It's just, yeah, I've done that. We've put recycling waste in, whoopie do. In the scheme of things, it's not going to make a huge amount of difference. Sorry to anyone out there who's focused on waste management. But I think one of the things we did to help break down these sort of silos and individualism that exists within an organization is take what I like to call a sort of more post-conventional approach to leadership, which was really around disrupting those usual patterns of behavior. So we would deliberately have meetings in different venues. Like we had a farm locally, we'd go and have meetings at the farm, rather than in corporate boardroom. It created different sounds, smells, we'd go for walks and talks. But what it meant was we were able to disrupt power dynamics. We were able to disrupt the normal decision-making processes, which allowed for new ways of thinking to emerge, new types of conversation, new potential outcomes and possibilities to emerge, which we could then use to form and create new collaborations, identify new intervention points, and in some cases, even within it, start to create that personal passion within individuals, because they started to sort of see some of that nature relationship or nature connection, the impact we have on more than just ourselves, which you can see when you start getting out into nature. And so by deliberately doing that, we were able to kind of start stitching together the different aspects between functions and individuals, so they started being able to work together and think differently.
And there you have it. We've covered a lot of ground in this episode, but you'll find a summary of the key points in the show notes at realise.earth107. In the next episode, Rich will be talking about the key skills you need to create change, build relationships, and bring people with you when you're leading on sustainability in your organisation. If you'd like to discuss the issues raised in the podcast, or to ask any questions about leadership for sustainability, you're in luck. We're about to launch a series of events where you can join us to do exactly that. To make sure you don't miss the details, and to get notified when a new episode comes out, sign up for our newsletter at realise.earth. I'm Osbert Lancaster, and I hope this episode of Leadership for Sustainability will help you lead on sustainability in your organisation. You'll find additional resources, masterclasses, and programs on our website at realise.earth. That's realise with an S. What you're doing is so important, now more than ever. Keep up the good work, and be sure to look after yourself. Bye for now.